Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are producer-director Guido Santi and artist Marischa Slusarski. Filmmaker Guido Santi was born and raised in Genoa, Italy. After graduating with a bachelor in philosophy from the University of Urbino, he started collaborating with a group of young filmmakers in Italy. In 1990, he came to the United States to study film production at USC. That's a great film school. Did you have a hard time getting in?
No, actually I did not. It was almost by chance that because I applied to I applied to NYU and USC.
Oh, that's good too, right?
Yes, and I was lucky enough to get into both. But then it was a matter of when did I want to start. NYU, I was on a I had to wait another 3 months before coming to the States, and I was lucky enough to be accepted at USC, and I didn't plan to stay here.
Not only lucky, you got a scholarship.
I was lucky. I got a scholarship. It helped me to pay, the tuition, which is very high, and eventually I was planning to stay 6 months and then to go back, but I stayed, and here I am.
But you always wanted to be a filmmaker.
I always
when you
did.
got out of school.
Yes, I always did since I was 12 years old.
Were you running around with a
still
camera?
No, actually with the Super 8 camera.
Oh, you were?
All the family films that we were doing. My mom was actually an editor. When she was younger, she was working in Italy as an editor. So she introduced me a lot to a lot of the tools of filmmaking.
So you had some background in your family.
A little bit, yes,
Yeah.
yes, a little bit.
And then one thing that I think we forget is film students, call you a student, have to do a thesis film.
Yeah, after I went to, I finished my program and I did a thesis film here, and went fairly well. It was
what was it about? Is it a full-length feature?
Was actually a medium-length feature. It was about 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. And was about a very abusive. You're taking me back in the past. It was about
not so long ago.
an abusive relationship between a couple, and it was very well received. I got into many festivals.
So did you direct it?
I wrote
cast it?
Yes, I did everything. Like most students have to do when they have to do a thesis film.
And then when you got out of school, did you get jobs in the industry?
Well, I started working almost immediately for the different Italian networks.
Here in Los Angeles?
Very strangely enough, yes. I was thinking I went back for a short time, but then eventually I started doing TV specials, documentaries, on different topics. Most of them were about the United States. So
well, did you think you were going to specialize in documentaries ever? Did you ever think that?
No. But a documentary has been going through a major revolution in the past 15 years, I would say, because the technology has changed so much. The way that filmmaking works. Right now you can basically shoot and edit your own film.
Right there in your bedroom.
So certainly there are other problems, because even if the cost of making a documentary is certainly much more manageable, but there is still distribution. You have always to find distribution, and you have to be able to get it out there. So.
Do you think it takes a certain sensibility to make documentaries?
I think it's a great escape, in my opinion, from the craziness of writing fiction and trying to get into big film business. I think it's very liberating, in my opinion, for myself at least. I feel like I'm freed to explore things as I like.
When you do a documentary?
Yes.
You teach. Where do you teach?
I teach at College of the Canyons up in Valencia, and I teach cinema classes. I teach history of cinema, film aesthetics, and then I used to teach also a lot of production classes. Now I'm just focusing on the theory part.
The theory part, well, if you talk about doing a documentary, because we're talking about this documentary that you did, Chris and Dawn, A Love Story. It's about Christopher Isherwood. Did you think it was going to take a certain path in documentary making? There are different ways to do documentaries.
Yes, there are certainly different ways, because this is a very particular project because of the topic of the film, and also because it's a very personal documentary, and you know, in a sense it's kind of antithetical to say a personal documentary about, and it's a documentary, so you should be in a sense very objective, very detached. But I think because of the nature of the project, Tina Mascara and I, who co-directed and co-produced the project together, we decided to go in a different take a different direction.
Well, first of all, Don Baccardi is a wonderful, wonderful artist. Christopher Isherwood was an expatriate from England. They met here in Santa Monica. How did you get to them, and what led you to this project?
Well, to give you a little bit of a backstory, right after, a year after I came to the States in 91, 92, I was introduced to Don Baccardi by Julia Alexander Scott, who is the daughter of Peter Alexander, who is another Californian artist.
Very good artist.
Very well known. And she introduced me to Don Baccardi. I was familiar with Christopher Isherwood's work as a writer, but not so much about, I didn't know about his relationship with Don Baccardi. And one night, Don showed me this beautiful, pristine film footage that they shot in the 50s. And I asked him, did ever anybody approach you regarding making a documentary about your life with such a famous, fantastic writer?
Way back then in 92?
In
93?
In 93, he showed me this material that he shot in the 50s.
And you thought of it then? It hit you right away?
Yes, but you know, I was through film school, I was busy with other projects, so I was not, I didn't pursue it right away. And then eventually, about 3 years ago, finally, we had the chance with Tina Mascara to reapproach the Don Baccardi and say, okay, now we are going to do it. And we went ahead and started production.
So what kind of budget were you thinking of?
Well, you know, it's
I'm
kind of...
going to show these
please.
while we're talking.
Well, what happened is that in reality, at the beginning, we didn't have much of a budget. And Tina and I just decided to go ahead and start shooting the documentary. So we started interviewing Don, and we went to Europe and interviewed other guests that we have
did?
on the... Yes, yes.
And what were you shooting on? What kind of...
you know, it was very... I would say
film?
Independent. No, we shot part on film, but most of it was shot in with a mini DV camera, so it was a very inexpensive, self-contained format. So
did you know what? I'll go through these, and you can tell me these.
This is actually a beautiful photograph from by Statis Orphanos, who is a close friend of Don, and he was also a very close friend of Christopher Isherwood.
And this one?
This is one of the yes, one of the early photos of Chris and Don in the early, possibly this was 1956, 1958, when Don was going through art school, and Chris was very much his mentor throughout his life.
And how old was Chris? Chris was around 50, and Don was 17 or 20.
Well, when the first time they met, Don was not even 18, but then eventually their relationship started once when Don was about 18, and you know,
this is probably more like it, right?
He looks very much younger than Isherwood. I mean, he looks under 18, but actually
Exactly.
it was of age. So
How did you get Michael York involved? Because he does some of the narration, or he does the voice.
Michael York does the narration of, he narrates the diaries from Christopher Isherwood. Narrates Christopher Isherwood's diaries, and he's very much a part of the documentary because he brings up Isherwood points of view on his relationship with Don Bacardi.
And how did you know? Did Don and he knew Don and Chris?
I met Michael York at one, I think at the through Don at the Christopher Isherwood Foundation at the Huntington.
Yes, Jim White is the
White
director of that.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
I see.
yes.
So, and then he was interested in the project?
And I told him that we were doing this very independent, very on a budget project, and I asked him, would you be willing to be part of it? And he was absolutely fantastic. He helped us so much.
One thing, just before we leave, you've used a lot of old footage. You
We
talked
have a
about
lot of
Don.
old footage. We have a lot of interviews with Leslie Caron, with John Borman, with Liza Minnelli, all people who were and a few scholars, all people who were involved with the in some way or another with Isherwood.
But you also did a little recreating a scene.
Yes, we did.
Why did you do that?
Well, this is not a pure documentary in terms of
the way you do.
The way normally we are familiar with documentary. I think in this sense it's very personal because we felt the need in certain moments of the story. We couldn't just rely on photographs or archived material. We wanted to make it more poignant and more emotional. And in a sense, it's a little bit more. It's an artistic, license, if I may say.
I see.
But we felt like it was the idea communicated better.
But also adding to the poignancy was the music. The music was terrific.
It's terrific. Miriam Cutler, she's a terrific composer. We were so lucky.
So you just gave it to her and she came up with the music,
well,
more or less,
everything
or you
is,
worked together?
Well, film is a very highly collaborative form,
Right.
so you have to
Right.
to work with everybody. And she, what was great is that she really poured herself into the project, and she loved the story. She loved Don Bacardi, who is a fantastic artist, a great human being. So.
Don said, "My last scene is the best. Don't miss it." And we're so happy you came, Guido, today to tell us about it.
Thank you very much for
because it's
having me.
played in a lot of festivals. It's at the AFI Festival and all over. So we'll look for a commercial release.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for having me here.
Don't go away because we'll be right back with Marischa Slusarski, who did this fabulous painting on the set today. Do you have to take one?
Of you?
Of me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with artist Marischa Slusarski, who was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. After Colorado State University, Marischa started her creative journey in photography, painting, drawing, design for dance, film, and live concerts. In 2000, she moved to London, where she created a body of multimedia photographic work. What kind of program were you participating in London?
It was my own program.
Oh, it was your own.
Yeah, it was an independent work study program. And I decided just to go over there. I needed to get away from Los Angeles for a while, and I wanted to create a body of work that was completely different than anything I had done. My idea was to sculpt a bunch of creatures that I would photograph artificially in museum-like dioramas on a platform.
And this is a sculpture?
Yeah, that is a sculpture. The sculptures were...
Is this what you were talking about at that time? Sculpting figures and then putting them in?
The photographs were never intended to be shown.
So you did sculpt them and then you photographed them?
Right.
So that was your multimedia?
Yes.
And then what did you do? You created this thing in your own mind and then did this? This is so great.
Well, I worked with I collaborated with another artist there named Claire Barron, and we would find old toys and plastic dolls at flea markets in London, and then we'd cover them with clay.
Oh.
We'd cut off their heads, we'd switch limbs, we were like Dr. Frankensteins, and I was just going to use the photographs as studies for paintings.
London Bridge. Oh.
This is called Gidget Goes to London.
Oh.
That's Tower Bridge.
Tower Bridge.
Yeah, and Tower London's in the background.
So that's how you started buying things that were already made and covering them?
Yeah, making little vests of clay, and it was very perverse and satisfying at the same time and humorous. The squirrel-like creatures are taxidermy forms, and we wanted to create a group, a power struggle between the taxidermy animals and the troglodyte clay creatures. And they all started taking on a life of their own. We gave them a backstory. We babbled to them like they were infants.
And these are cactus in here? Is the photograph in the back? Or is it all one piece?
It's all one piece. We used artificial lighting. We used a lot of different scrims. The cactus and some of the other plants are mostly exotic vegetables from the Indian stores. I lived in Banglatown on Brick Lane, and so this is actually a cucumber right here.
Oh, I see.
It's fantastic fun.
That cucumber that I thought was a cactus?
Well, this is a very small cactus, but this is a cucumber right here.
I love this. Here's another one.
That's called Petticoat Junction.
And so those are, what is it? Cows and bunny rabbits?
And yeah, and
So these were all done in England?
Those were all done in England. They were shown we had 2 group shows and 2 solo shows in London, and then we had the next show was in Chicago.
Of this. I'm going to show one more before we get into the next series of work you did. So these are all done with clay, sculpting, pieces of found objects, really.
Yeah, and the squirrel-like creatures, all the rodents and pine martens and things are actually taxidermy forms that we got from this outfit in Minnesota and shipped to London.
Did you?
Because nobody had any taxidermy forms in London.
So you founded this thing called Underbelly. Was that part of this workshop that you were doing? What was it?
I felt like the artists in London were so despondent because a lot of them, the young ones that hadn't had shows, because if they didn't go to the right schools, they couldn't show their artwork.
I know, they get really uptight, don't they?
Yeah, and so I just sort of wielded this like yank bravado and said, I'm going to start my own gallery as well, and feature emerging artists who have nowhere else to show. And so I talked some people into letting me build a gallery next to their hair salon, an empty space, right on Brick Lane in the Gallery District in the East End. It's fantastic fun.
So what was it called? Underbelly?
Underbelly. and we had fashion shows and student films.
Oh, you did everything.
And art exhibitions. And
so were you the art director?
Yeah.
Filtering everything in
I was
and
the
bringing people?
Gallery director.
Well, tell us how you connect photography and painting. Is there any photography involved in this piece on the set?
Well, yeah, I mean, the photos we just saw of the clay creatures, I made a new generation of them when I got to California. So they appear in a lot of my new paintings. The creatures from London also appear in my new paintings as guest stars. And it infuses them with this backstory and with a name and a sort of
so you create your characters.
I create my characters, I photograph them, I light them artificially, and then it helps me paint them.
And then you paint them.
A lot of the things in this painting we're looking at right now are just from my imagination. But
the face up on top?
Yeah, this is called The Liberation of Ted's Head, and it's many, many layers of multimedia, including watercolor, colored pencils, markers, acrylic paint, transfer letters, applique, collage.
All that is in there?
Yeah.
All those things are in there, and then you varnish it?
Yeah, many, many layers of varnish.
I see some writing.
Someone writing.
I see your writing in it.
Yeah,
Words.
yeah, it's pen
letters.
and ink. It's also inky transfers, like transfer letters.
And this show, which I have some other pieces from, is at the Robert Berman Gallery.
That's correct.
So I'm going to just hold these up so we can see a couple of these newer ones that came out of the same idea. These are all done on the same level as this piece on the
Yeah,
set?
the inspiration came from the photographs I did in London of the clay creatures that I sculpted.
Okay, and this is called?
This is called Seemingly Ecstatic Extremophiles.
I'm going to go on so we can see a couple
called
of these.
The Partial Excavation of Amy.
I see the connection from the very first ones that you were talking about,
Well,
that you showed.
Right, and you can see a lot of the characters are similar. I've
Is
added
that why
things.
I see the connections, the
Yeah.
characters more or less?
Yeah, and I've added things like I've added like
And this has a lake in it?
yeah, that's called Nocturnal Playtime Memory Lake.
Oh, I did see the lake. Good for me.
Now these are
Oh, these are different. I have some big pictures of these. Shall I show
yeah.
those?
Why don't you start with the
I'll start with these first.
yeah.
These?
This is what I'd started. These were my old paintings. These were the paintings that I did for probably about 5 to 10 years, and I painted a lot of deer in the woods, 3-headed deer, 2-headed deer, parasitic twins.
Here's
Deformed creatures in the woods, but in a very muscular, naturalistic-looking painting style. I wanted to comment on.
but they were bizarre creatures, but in a naturalistic setting.
Right.
Oh, like this.
That one.
Definitely.
That one's also showing right now at the Robert Berman Gallery.
Okay. And are these also part of that?
No, these are a little bit earlier than the ones you just held up. But they also were part of that series. As you can see, my painting style got a little more realistic.
Yeah.
And then I went completely the other direction
Wait, let's do
and
this.
started painting
This one too.
What the Prairie Dogs Saw.
How do you remember all the titles? Oh.
Well, they're on the bottom of the page.
Oh, you're not reading those. You're remembering them. And then let's go through these because these are your portraits.
These are also showing at the Robert Berman Gallery. I have this really intense connection with animals. I spent a lot of time. I grew up in the Midwest.
Look how
I spent a lot of
beautiful.
time on farms. These are gearnucks, and they actually can be found at the LA Zoo. They're called the giraffe of animals. This was more about flirting with abstraction, but trying to paint a naturalistic-looking animal with a lot of human introspection around their eyes.
Here, talk about eyes.
Yeah, these ones were sold at the gallery already. This is the fox with the.
And these
That's
eyes
the lemur.
again.
That's the lemur.
Really?
Yeah.
These eyes are great.
Yeah.
And what are these material they used?
They start out with marble dust, which is sanded many, many, many different times.
So I was going to ask
create
if
a
it was
texture.
pastel.
No, it starts with a really thick. They're very, very thick, and then I start with a lot of different acrylic paint over the top of them, and they're actually scratched back into them to the white surface with Dremel tools, with sandpaper.
So each piece would take
Yeah.
what? How long? Long?
Well, these are only 16 by 20 inches, but and I work on many at the same time. But yeah, they take forever.
But the other interesting thing is you've done portraits. You're going to do a portrait of me. I'm not going to look like an animal, am I?
Do you want to?
Oh, I don't know. It's up to you.
I could see many beautiful animals in your face.
But you've done live concerts. You've done sets for live concerts. You've done opera sets. You've done film sets. How do you go about that?
Well, I firmly believe that the art world now is about fusing highbrow art with lowbrow art, and also doing a lot of things that involve, pop culture. It's like Takashi Murakami.
Right.
It's like, you know, he's designing Louis Vuitton bags. And when I was asked to design sets for theater, I thought, that's fantastic. I'd love to do that. Picasso did that when he was making paintings. And I was asked to design a monster for a horror film. So
You mean an actual, because it comes out of your work, I guess.
And I have a children's toy called Alien Bugheads, which features a lot of the creature designs from the paintings.
But you've gotten a Ford Foundation grant. You've worked with someone in an NEA program. I mean, your work is awarded and looked upon as really important.
Well, I have to correct you. I was nominated for a Ford Foundation.
Oh, that's okay.
But only 300 artists were nominated in the whole country.
I always think the nomination's as good as winning, but it's true.
Yeah, and I did a lot of performance art early in my career, and I did. I founded the International Foundation of Body Painters.
So were you always collaborative? Because those are all really collaborative
I love to
things.
collaborate. I mean, I wouldn't want to collaborate with 20 to 100 people, and I wouldn't want someone to come in and rewrite or repaint my paintings. But I love to collaborate because you just feel so inspired by other people's brain power, and with these paintings, these paintings in particular, I didn't collaborate because they were so fun to me that I spend 14 hours in the studio a day. There's no rules.
They look like you. They're really pastel and beautiful and terrific.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for being with us. I really enjoyed having you here.
Well, you're fantastic too.
So, and thank you for watching today. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017, and email me at jaquinn1@aol.com. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.